Hello, welcome to Flooring Models Kit Review Time. Today we've got Kinetic's Monster 124 scale P47D Razorback. Now I say Razorback because we know this kit is actually a rebox from the vintage fighter series of kits. 124 scale, round about 2007, 2008 it came out as a bubble top. But they never released, as far as I'm aware, the Razorback. But Kinetic have somehow done the Razorback. Now, is this because something that VFS did but never released, and then obviously Kinetic have come along, or Kinetic have stepped up and they've done a joint collaboration between the two? To be honest, I'm not too sure. I had a quick look around Google and can't find much on it, only that this is a rebox of the bubble top. Well, I'm not sure, but did the bubble top come with the Razorback in the same kit? Not too sure either. So there's a couple of little things I'm not 100% on, but generally very excited. As we can see, we have this very large box. A little bit different having it this size, which in some ways is better because it fits nicer into the stash, shall we say, instead of having something long and flat and all the rest of it. Anyway, as you can see on the top, without the glare, beautiful box art on there. We've got Squirt 2 in the lovely D-Day markings, as we can see, the beautiful Thunderbolt. So, as we can see, we've got down here, just looking around on the thing, pretty much standard. So we've got, look at the artwork description. So we've got Squirt 2 we just spoke about. We've also got Miss Nut decal placement down there, as well, as we can see. Very nice with a white tail, without the actual D-Day markings, but something a little bit different. We've down there. So your kit number is K3208, the 8th one in the range, is it? And we can see there, decal designed by Kitworld, and all the rest of it. Now it doesn't make any reference to fighter series. I'm looking around on this, but I can't actually see anything down on the box anywhere, as you can see. Now the box is sealed. I haven't looked in here at all, as you can see, so it'll be interesting to see how this one is compared to the old one. So, lid coming off, like an iPhone release. There we go. Wow, stuffed. Look at that. That gives you a sense of how big this thing is. Now, I know I said that I would never do another large model after doing the 1/24th scale Typhoon. I lied. I'd do this one. It's beautiful kit. Right, as you can see, it is absolutely stuffed in here, and I don't think I can go fishing for the paperwork. I might be able to. Without getting in trouble, I was going to say. So, crikey, this is big boxes and everything. We'll look at that in a minute because that looks absolutely fantastic. Okay, not sure why, but we've got two instruction manuals. So I'm just trying to see if there's a difference. Never mind. Okay, so down here, a little bit on the cheap side, shall we say, with the actual paperwork. We've got colour call-outs, so say it's quite nice. We've actually got Vallejo model colour, MiGs, Italeri, obviously the guns range, Humbrol and Tamiya. Okay, so we've got some nice colour call-outs for everybody down there. And then we're straight into what can only be described, especially in this day and age, because most of the manufacturers are using CAD drawings and it's all very nice, very much the old school way. So as you can see, cockpit going together. Now, I do know the old kit, and to be honest, I have built the old kit, but I built the old kit, it was a commission, and it was a lower end commission, so we say. So it was just basically the outside was wanted, not so much detail on the inside. But remembering correctly, the cockpit went together very, very nicely. Okay, as you can see, it's got some nice details. We've obviously got the handles all in for the throttles. It's like a walled interior, so it gives a nice detail and a nice opportunity to actually detail it yourself. So if you wanted to, a little bit like we did with the larger scale kits recently, is getting there with lead wire, bits of plastic card. We've seen lots of aftermarket bits and pieces for standalone items that go in here to really detail it up and bring it to life. Okay, the engine, which is beautifully represented on this one with all the lines and everything going in and out. Again, a little bit of lead wiring just around there, just to put in some leads and various things to really make it pop. Okay, so as we can see, this beautiful radial engine. Obviously a massive feature of the jug up at the front and the exhaust manifolds and all the rest of it going on there, the coolers, okay, and then all your parts going in, as you can see, just down the back of the engine. Okay, and then it going together. So there's that all important wing spark, as it is very large lump on this one. The cockpit goes in the inside, and then multi-part if you want to have it shown or not for the actual engine bay that then goes on the front. Okay, tailplanes going on, cooler doors for the rear going on. As I say, when I did this one last time, a lot of these instructions are out of place. Like canopies going on before the wing seems a bit odd, okay, and all the rest of it. Tail wheel is a block system that goes in and then drops in the back. The pancake fuel tank, if you wanted to. Again, these instructions are all a bit weird because it's all sort of out of line. Okay, and then we've got the gun assembly, so you do have a detailed gun bay with it opened up. Unfortunately, you don't get the sort of, like we saw on the 24 scale Airfix Typhoon, the actual gun bay area, so you've got like the magazines with all the ammo sat in there and everything else. All right, you do get quite a nice weapons fit for this one, so the usual standard thing for the day. Drop flaps or raised, whichever way you want to have it, obviously the gear being put in. Again, it's quite a solid gear, but not the best in the world purely because of the size and the weight. Okay, usual thing on the other side is just a replacement for that one. Okay, and then your two wings go in. So is it me, or do you get that as well? It's like 1, 2, miss a few, and you're done. The kit itself isn't the most detailed in the world, and that's where it was always a letdown in the early days. It's a beautiful, don't get me wrong, a very large aircraft, but to things like the control surfaces, you know, the tail, if I remember rightly, the rudder we'll look in a moment, is all one piece and all things like that. It's just a little bit odd way of doing it. Different types of props. Obviously you pick the prop you want to go on the front, okay, and then the markings, which we've seen before. As I say, a couple of nice little shots there for the different markings you can see. And this is the beauty. This gives you an idea of how big this lump is, the actual wings, you know, and obviously the nose art. This is beautifully done. Unfortunately, it's had a hard life in the box. We've got some gout. Actually, it looks like somebody has signed their name, which is great because it's depressed right into my decals. And yeah, I could get that now, but that's actually somebody's signature, which they've obviously written on this, has gone through, so that's great. Okay, so usual thing, we've got the Pacific and the European theatre one down there. Again, you know, some of this stuff down here, it may look very crude and basic because of its, well, really what it is. But at the end of the day, this is where you go aftermarket down here. If you're going to be spending the time and the energy doing this particular kit, spending another 50, perhaps £60 on aftermarket stuff for it. If I remember rightly, there's wheels out there. You can get resin replacement wheels for it, things like that. They probably are worth the sort of upgrade on it. It's not the most expensive kit in the world, okay? But generally, they are very nice, very in register, very solid, very glossy, and in fact, over glossy. They look too nice, all these decals. They could do with knocking back a little bit, but that's something that could be done a little bit later on. Right, okay, let's get going with this. So, this will give you an idea of how large this lump is. And yeah, we were right. Don't expect Tamiya. Just saying it now. This isn't your Tamiya kit. We are going to get some of those little things. Imagine this like a short run kit, but a little bit better. Okay? So, if we just dive straight in here, just to give you an idea, good job we've got the wide camera on. Again, you wouldn't expect to have a one-piece tail with the rudder moulded in on a kit of this particular scale. I think the panel lines have always been a little bit overdone, and it's big and it's chunky, but this is a big chunky model. You know, I know we've got shot marks all over this and all the rest of it, but it'll just give you an idea of scale on this thing. It is absolutely a monster. Okay, don't forget you've got a giant radial engine going to go on the front of here and everything else, so it's definitely on the same par as anything else that we've done. But again, it is a chunk and a half. You know, it's the jug, it's known as the juggernaut, all the rest of it, you can now see why. The riveting is all very good, it's all in place, it is all very nice. It's just that unfortunately, it's just a little bit overdone. And you would expect with a kit of this particular thing to be a little bit more delicate, a little bit more refined perhaps than we're seeing here. Okay, generally detail on the inside we don't have to worry about because you haven't got anything. The firewall is here at the front, so you're not going to see it. All of these areas you're not going to see it at the back, okay? But perhaps it would have been nice to have some formal work, as I said, separate tail onto it and all the rest of it, but unfortunately we never saw it with this particular kit. Again, I'm amazed. I thought, I don't know why, but I'm racking my brains on this kit trying to remember doing it, because to be honest, it was back in 2008 I actually did this one. And as I said, it was a commission and it was for an external model, i.e. no internal detail to it whatsoever. It was just going to hang from a wall or something. So from that point of view, I always remember it was just a little bit heavy, and I remember it didn't take very long either, and now I can remember it a lot better. But generally, it did go together all right, you know. So same on the other side, exactly the same, it's just a mirror of, as you can see just down there. Might be able to bring the camera down just a little bit closer now. Okay, so some of the other parts. This is your bulkhead. The big thing is, if you look at the parts, how big, chunky and heavy they all are, it gives you an idea of it. As you can see, we've got a little bit of flash running around here and everything else, but generally the parts are very, you know, heavy duty and everything else. Instrument panel, as you can see, it is non-existent whatsoever to anything on this one. So unfortunately, as you say, it falls flat, very much so there. As far as I'm aware, nobody's ever jumped to this thing's rescue. Okay, so the friggin' hell's that? Okay, we'll look at it. So here we have, I'm just trying to work this out. What is that? Is that a different tail system? Did it have a, never had one. So this is the bubble back on here. So are we getting both sides in here? Am I going to find another fuselage? I don't know. A little bit weird, okay. Anyway, aileron, just on the back, giving you a size. Again, as you can see, very big, it's very chunky. It is what it is, okay. There's not much finesse with this kit, shall we say, okay. And generally, as you can see on there, no problem at all. Everything's very nice with it though. The riveting is a little bit, you know, like down here, you can see 1 minute it's all here, the next minute it's gone. It just fades away a little bit and then it comes back and everything else. So unfortunately, it is what it is. Okay, got a couple of sink marks in this guy as well. Here, there and everywhere for some of the thicker injection moulding on this one. Okay, right, the wings. What the hell did we get in here? There it is, right, okay. So, here we go. Right, moulded completely in one with the underside, as you can see, so you won't have to worry about building all of that one. Again, it's there, it's just it's not very nice, okay? At the end of the day, it's quite a lot of work to update this kit as well, because to take this out would be a major job to do, to replace it with anything nice. So it's not like a case of, okay, this activator down here, I tell you what, let's pull it out, let's make one out of plastic hardened rod, put it in there. Because to get that out, it's a nightmare, then fit the other one in, or you take the entire section out and restart it again. It depends how much of a martyr you are. This was always a problem, chopped off of the sprue, as you can see here, but fortunately they've taken half the leading edge of the wing with it. Okay, so instead of leaving a gap, they didn't, okay, and they've taken it with it. And this was the other thing as well. So, yeah, as you can see, the aileron system, I don't think we're going to be able to get this to go for a minute, but we can try. Going to sit in there, going to play ball down. That's it, we've got the wrong one in here, that's why. Hold on, let me just grab the other one to show you. You might seem I'm a little bit taken back on this. You know what happens is, in your mind you're thinking, I remember doing that kit, a really good kit. But obviously I have done quite a few. So what happens is, in your mind you remember it being great, and then you're thinking to yourself, now I remember why it wasn't so good. Okay, so that's the way they did it. Got to remember which way it is round now. We'll get there in a moment. There it is. Okay, so this is how the wing set goes. So you do have the gun bay and you have the open full one on one side. I did mine up completely last time because there wasn't any detail in it. Okay, this is where your undersection for the aileron goes on. So you'd think, maybe moving, maybe not. Also, looking at the texture on the top of these wings, the plastic is particularly nasty. It's all here, but it's chunky and horrible and everything else, okay? So you say it's a little bit basic of how this goes. And then this guy, if I remember rightly, was a complete waste of space because we have no internals into this area, unless I've missed the boat here. But if I remember rightly, there was no internals. Gun had internals, but not on this side. Okay, but as I say, a little bit different. You can see by the size of the holes and everything else, it is a large, chunky kit. Okay, going to put that to one side because I don't understand why that's even in here. Okay, so looking through some of the other bits. Okay, as we can see down here, we have the flaps. nothing really wrong with those. A little bit finer riveting, but it does have a texture of them all of their own, as you can see all on those parts. Okay, this is your weapons fit. We've got a couple of packs of these. So these are those big tube launchers for the rocket launchers. Obviously your free fall bombs, things like that. This is your undercarriage suspension travel thingies and all the rest of it on there like that. These are the parts for the underside of the wing. So you've got the one with the landing light, one with not. The front end, these actually are the hubs for your wheels. Jesus, look at the size of them, horrendous. And again, beautiful, there's no detail. Not even a bolt or a rivet or something else, tyre fill, anything whatsoever on those, nothing at all. Sway bases, again, they're there, big, chunky, not much detail. Okay, unfortunately. So there we go, that's those. Props, gives you an idea of the size of this beast. You've got obviously a couple of different options of props down here. So as you can see, this is the paddle type ones. So you've got one with a front end on it to the rear and one without. Okay, so you sort of spinner on it right the way through. This is part of the actual sprue wing joist going across. Okay, so you can see it just down there like that. Again, big, chunky, no detail whatsoever. So it's a shame something like on these with the props, it's, you know, it's just nothing there. You know, you'd expect a little bit more detail on these than you find. Lots of burring as well, so there's big sandwiches between each one. Okay, wondering about the intake, the doors and things? Look at that, chunky as hell, big, nasty, and all the rest of it. Okay, I think I remember now why we just did an external model, if I remember rightly. The gun barrels are quite nicely done, but as I said, chances are you might want to drill them out and replace them with a little bit of brass tube. And do those instead of the plastic way, and it'll look a lot better. The actual rack there for the bomb on the side, not much to it at all, and everything else. Same again. So you've got the internal doors, which are quite nice. At least we haven't got an ejector pin marker in there, so kudos to them for that. That's the underside of the wing panel for the access panel to the outside. Again, why it's like that is no one's guess. And some more props, different versions of, and all the rest of it. So this one is the bigger, thicker one versus the skinny one. So that's why you've got different types of prop on the front. Okay, and then we've got this wing spar. That's the word I was after earlier. Again, very little detail to it, but you don't see it anyway, so. Okay, right. It's amazing, for something that's only got 8 steps to build it, you do get quite a lot of plastic. Okay, so. Right, this is your upper area, and as you might see in there, we have got a little bit of sinkage just down in these parts, because this is what it is. And the trouble is, it is ejector pin heaven inside those areas. Okay, I take it all back about that. I don't remember that in the original. Okay, so we do have an option there for open, I presume, obviously full up gun racks or empty gun racks, depending on which way you want to show it, open or closed for the gun bays and everything else. This is your exhausts, obviously the back end and everything else like that. Not sure what that one is. So that's another instrument panel, which is equally as bad as all the others on here. And some of the smaller parts. And when you say smaller parts, that's about as small as you're going to get on this one. Okay, right the way through. But as you can see, generally the cowling and everything else isn't too bad. It's just, again, you get the odd rivet that is not in line. They go along, ding, 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 no problem at all. And then one is like stepped out. So it's a little bit weird how they do all of that on these ones. But, you know, generally it is there. It is a start. Okay, so this is the firewall, if you like, from the cockpit to the main area, things like that. The cockpit floor, again, looking quite trenchy and everything else like that. Some of the tanks, fuel equipment, things like that. This is the back end of the engine, if I remember rightly. The seats give you an idea of how poor that is. Okay, and right the way through. Now I'm sounding horrible, but I'm remembering this kit. Now I'm seeing the parts. I'm thinking, I remember that bit. I remember that didn't fit. Okay, right. So, tailplanes. I'll tell you what, let's do the engine and we'll do tailplanes. Okay. At least it's almost separately bagged. I say almost. Okay, so again, the engine was always a nice point on this. Some very nice details, extremely crisp moulding with all the vanes and everything else like that off the actual cylinders themselves, so no problem with those at all, and it all goes together very well considering. Okay, again, these are very nice, pretty much in scale as you imagine. The cooler vents, things like that, they're all good. All right, and actually it isn't too bad. By the time it's painted and weathered, it looks pretty good. It just needs livening up with a little bit of wiring around the front end if you're going to look down it. If you're going to have it completely open, then obviously you'll need a little bit more. Okay, so some other areas, as I say, this is the exhaust system coming off of this one. It needs a little bit of deburring, so I'd invest in an Alex scraper for doing that and just save yourself a lot of time and everything else like that. This is the back end of the engine, the various parts down on here. Okay, very nice, not too bad at all. And there's the other cockpit floor. So we've got both versions in this box. This is what's catching me. Okay, so here we have the tailplanes. Again, the actual elevators are moulded in the one position, so you can't have them under some type of deflection. There's your gear. It's big, it's heavy, it's very crude, okay, but it's a starting point. Wouldn't take too much because of its scale, things like that, to get some lines down it, tape them up to give them the effect. Your rear doors, okay, for the rear gear, just down the back there, right the way through. Okay, so no problem. A couple of ejector pins you're going to need to take care of, but generally not too bad at all. Okay, the cowl flaps obviously in the closed position. I don't think there was an option for open unless I missed it, so that's those down the back there. The slip tank gives you an idea of the scale of this thing, how big that is. Okay, and right the way through. Looks like the turbocharger there. This is your pitot tubes, various things like that. Okay, again, well worth going down the aftermarket route or getting some turned ones and things. Okay, get rid of the box because it's taking up half the screen. Okay, so down in here, we have fuel tanks. So we've got the teardrop type tanks, just like that. Okay, no problem with those at all. To be honest, they go together well, I know. These are the paper tanks, I think they were. Okay, again, they're no problem at all. They are what they are, but in reality, they are. There's not a lot to them. Okay, and then we've got some of the smaller braces. So we've got the sway braces down here for the centerline tank. Okay, and some of the other smaller parts just down on there. So these are the scoops for the coolers on the rear and everything else as you look down. One like that. And then we've got this guy here, which is the rudder for the bubble top version, which is what this sprue is. And then this is the rudder, which goes on this one. So it's all a little bit weird, but obviously well, that's what they've done. They've just reboxed. Okay, so that is the one-piece rudder system down in there, just like that. Okay. Then we've got the sidewalls for the cockpit. Can get into it. Where's the open? I'm looking for the gun barrels as well. I haven't seen them yet. I'm hoping they're in there. Okay, so here's your gun barrels. Again, they are so plain. This is what I was saying about you just change them for some brass ones and just stick them in. Okay, gun area itself, as you can see just down in there, that's the ring for around the engine system, a cooler set. Okay, rear bulkhead. I don't think it is the one for this. This might be the bubble tops back one, I think, down in there, just like that. Again, basic, crude, not a lot really to it. Okay. Cockpit walls, again, it's all very, you know, it's moulded in there. Wouldn't be rocket science to replace this and wire it up yourself, and I think that'll make a massive difference to this. Some more of the engine piping. This is the gun set and everything else, as you can see going down here. Here's your guns as well for those beautiful 50 calibers down there, but unfortunately, again, they're not the best detail in the world, so if you're going to have them open, you might just want to liven it up again with some scratch details, things like that. Or even, I don't think you can, but if you could get some aftermarket ones, maybe a little bit better, just like that. Now, we have a couple of clear parts. So we've got clear parts for the engine, I do believe. Possibly. Okay, so these are, I'm just trying to work out what they are. Looks like they're for the tops of the gun base. Okay, for the panels on the top there. No ejector pins moulded in those at all, so that's quite a nice touch. You could paint them up. Again, it's fogged, so why would you have it? Because you can't see through the fog system. Never worked that one out. Somebody explained to me why they do clear parts that are fogged. So it's about as much use as a shower door. Yeah. Right. And the all-important clear parts. Okay, so if I remember correctly, they were always actually very nice. No problem with that at all. But obviously this is different because this is the Razorback compared to the Bubble. No problem with that at all. Oh look, they do it in clear as well. So you can have a totally clear, fogged or plastic. Take your choice. Okay, the HUD, the wing lights, which don't have a hole, so you want to drill that to put a bulb into it and all the rest of it. But the clear parts, I have to say, do look very, very clear. No problem with that at all. They look very, very nice. Okay, last thing is the tyres. I imagine they're going to be the same as last time. Brace yourself. There we go. Yeah, I couldn't work that one out either. Not quite sure why they did it that way. So we are rubber hubbed on the inside, solid on the outside. Again, a little bit weird. Never seen it done like this before. And generally, it's almost impossible to put a flat spot in these because they are literally rock hard. They're extremely hard to get on as well, if I remember rightly, to try and pull them through. And once they're on, they don't regain shape, if you know what I mean. You get like a ring around it. But again, yeah, never mind. The aftermarket ones are available. To be honest, I can't remember who did it now, but I do remember at the time thinking about going down the aftermarket route because there is some resin ones available, which is definitely a bit of a must for this kit, like I said in the early days. As you can see, you do get a hell of a lot of plastic. Now, we're assuming that they've just chucked in the bubble top parts, which are these, okay, because you needed the actual bottom of the ailerons. So that's why they've put this entire section in. So it's a new tooled system here with this top part to go in, because you can't even, it's not like a score line, remove it and you could do the bubble as well. Not that we could because we've got the parts there. But it is nice to see the Razorback. I always think the Razorback is superseded, shall we say, by the P47D bubble top, which obviously was the later version to it, but this was the workhorse of it. This was the Hurricane of the Battle of Britain. This was the aircraft that, you know, obviously went out and did it. The bubble top came along, was more like the glamorous version of it with better visibility and everything else. As I say, I built this kit back in 2007. It was a commission, and originally it was supposed to be just a standard type of thing. And if I remember rightly, when I got it, it was sent to me by the client. I took one look at it and said, let's just do an external model. I can do an external model for this price, no problem at all. And the guy went for it because, as I explained, to actually go through the motions of saying, right, okay, let's do A, B and C to this, it's going to take quite a while to upgrade it and make it look really nice. Now, is this the thing because it's a big kit? Okay, this could be the thing. Bigger kits, you start to get into that sort of toy mode. When I did the space shuttle, 1/72 space shuttle, that thing is a monster. It's one of the biggest things I've ever built. The trouble was, putting it together, it was so big and clunky, it just lost its scale because all the refined details are so big on it. This is what I think is happening with this one as well. Because you're now into this big chunky stage, unless you're going to rip it apart a little bit like I did with the Typhoon, to make the smaller details hang out, to give it that scale appeal, it's not going to get it. This thing's going to look like a giant tank no matter what you're doing with it. Again, I would highly recommend, if you're building this, building it straightforward out of the box, but just update the cockpit and leave the rest. Don't open it up because otherwise it looks a little bit sort of toyish and plasticky and everything else. By all means, if you want to rip it open and start to super detail it, it's a great kit to start off with, but it's a big kit, so it's going to take all the small details, have to be extra details to make it look right. So instead of it just being a couple of wires, you need all the wires in there at this scale, otherwise it just doesn't look realistic. And that is the trouble when you start to do these bigger kits, 1/24 scale, and it's what I found when I've been doing them recently. Is it a good kit? Does it go together well? If I remember correctly, it does go together very well as long as you're building it straightforward out of the box and just putting it together. The wing joints are a complete pain in the bum to get right. Just take your time with it. Plastic card shims is how I did it, to be honest. I had a few gaps because it's a big, don't go down the filler route. Plastic card into the gap, cut it, sand and smooth and do it that way, because say as soon as you start going on filler with this one, it ends up into a filler magnet and just put tons and tons in there to try and fill things. Okay, but generally it will go together very nicely. It's just that the cockpit really for its scale isn't that good, and some of the other areas, to be honest, not having a separate rudder system so you can't put everything at a jaunty little angle and things like that is a real letdown to the kit. But it is what it is. It's a 2008 kit that's had a rebox by Kinetic and they're pushing it out. From a personal point of view, building it as a straightforward out of the box, no problem at all, but to go around and detailing it, I think it's just a little bit a step too far. When we were doing the Airfix Typhoon in 1/24th, it lended itself nicely to it. It had the options, it had the detail in the cockpit to rip the side off to expose it, it had the detail in the gun base to go with it. It was all there, it just needed to be helped along a little bit. This one unfortunately is probably a little bit beyond help, okay, to try and do something with this particular kit. So there we go, that is Kinetic's 1/24th scale monster P47D Thunderbolt.